The moment Cecil entered the Bluebird Guesthouse, he thought he saw a creeping shadow slink by in the far corner. Some weird, multi-limbed form strutting by in the darkness. The house was supposed to be haunted, but haunted by what exactly? The storied old Queen Anne house, built in the 1700s by a wealthy importer who had taken advantage of the sea bordering the town, was the jewel of the area. "Hi, I'm Cecil. I'm here for the interview." The haggard, stubbly manager, cigar in mouth, looked up from his paperwork. Cecil. Oh yeah, Cecil, sorry. Have a seat. I have your resume here somewhere. All right, yeah, looks good. Okay, can you start tonight?" Cecil raised his eyebrows. Like I'm hired? That's it? If you want the job, it's yours, kid. Tourist season in New England, you know. We need a desk clerk. It's just checking people in and out. $60 an hour. Wait, $60 an hour to man the front desk? Yep. Overnight shift. Come in at 7 in the evening, leave at 7 in the morning. Overnight's the least busiest time for regular guests, that is. Just obey the rules and you'll be fine. Something about his words pricked Cecil's sense of danger, but for $60 an hour, he couldn't say no. He returned at 6:45 that evening, saw the cutest girl about his age standing behind the desk. "Cecil?" Yeah, I'm Cecil. "Hey, I'm Katrina. We'll be working the night shift together. So we need to go over the most important thing first. I'll be mostly around the guest house cleaning. You'll be here in the counter. There are rules. And these rules, they're really, really important. They're not a joke. Here, look at them while I go check a few rooms." She handed Cecil an ancient, leather-bound book that looked like it had been there since the Bluebird had been built. He carefully opened it and saw that the paper was thick and yellowing. On the top very first page, in an old-fashioned spidery handwriting in red ink, appeared the word rules. Rule 1. If a very pale woman wants to check in after midnight, do not say anything to her or look her in the eyes. Simply take her payment and give her the key. Rule 2. If you hear a crying girl's voice from the lobby begging you for help, ignore it completely and do not engage. Rule 3. If you see the shadow creepers in your peripheral vision, immediately poke your finger with the supplied scalpel and close your eyes. Rule 4. If you break a rule, you have 5 minutes to exit the guest house. What the heck? Is this a joke? Nothing in that list could be serious. Katrina returned. "Hey, did you read the rules?" Yeah? Are those, real? What's going on here?" He thought of the $60 an hour salary and wondered if it was some kind of danger pay. Her smile faded into grim, tight lips. "They're real. Look, I've been working here for over a year now. The money's great, obviously, but you have to overlook some things. If you just obey the rules, you'll be fine. I'd hate for you to be like the last guy they hired." Cecil frowned. What happened to him? Katrina just looked down at the hardwood floor, rubbed the back of her neck, and said, "I need to clean up the restaurant tables. I'll be back later." She gave him a flirty wink as she left, and for just a moment he forgot about the rules. Until around midnight, nothing happened. No guests, nothing. At 10 minutes past midnight, he heard the front doorbell ring. He waited, but no one came to the desk. He thought it might have just been Katrina, but then he heard the distinct voice of a young girl. It began with a soft crying, a mournful, tragic weeping. At first, the hair on his arm stood erect, and he felt suddenly cold. The weeping had a ghostly quality to it, a hollow echoing that seemed distant and close at the same time. Then the girl began sobbing out words. "I'm lost. Where's my mommy? Someone help me. I miss my mommy." Cecil thought of his little cousin Amy. This girl sounded about the same age. He imagined Amy lost, desperate, unable to understand, missing her mom. "I'm coming, honey. Hold on." He hopped around the desk and trotted towards the parlor. Entering, he saw a little girl in a white dress sitting in the corner facing away from him. Her arm was up over her face, and she was shaking with each sob. "Hey, sweetheart, it's okay. I'm going to help you find your mommy. I'm Cecil. Here, come with me." She didn't turn around, so he gently took her little hand and tried to carefully turn her around to take her back to the check-in area. She slowly removed her arm from across her face. "What the—" Cecil staggered backwards. The girl's face was the pallid color of death, and her eyes were sunken into deep black pits. 2 long, pointed teeth were hanging from under her upper lip. She smiled more and more widely until her mouth was stretched. "Mommy? Is that you? Mommy, Mommy, Mommy!" She stood up and held her pale arms out toward Cecil. "Wait, what is this?" "I'm hungry, Mommy. Let me feed." She hunched like a cat about to spring on a mouse, then leaped up and flew across the short distance to him. Her body was heavy and hard like a marble statue, and he fell backwards. She crawled onto his chest and hissed, then plunged her head toward his neck. Her teeth snapped at his carotid artery. He felt a spray of water. The girl screeched and rolled off his chest. There stood Katrina with a bottle of holy water. She sprayed more on the girl, and her skin began to blister and smoke. "Away, vile thing, away!" Katrina then held up a large crucifix towards the girl, who shielded her eyes with her arm and howled. "Cecil, back to the desk, now!" He didn't need convincing. He ran back to the check-in desk. Katrina backed up after him, and soon they were safely behind the desk. She looked angry. "You broke Rule 2! Look, it's not that I'm mad. It's that I want you to be safe." What the hell was that?" She put her hand on his arm with some sympathy and a half-smile. "This place, the Bluebird Guesthouse. It's not normal. If you grew up around here, you probably know the rumors of it being haunted. Well, it's true, only it's not just ghosts." "Haunted?" "Yep. The man who built this house was into all sorts of occult stuff. Apparently he practiced a little too much black magic here and invited all sorts of things to stay. Look, just follow the rules and you'll be fine." Cecil just slowly nodded. He couldn't believe Katrina was so nonchalant about it, but she went back to her cleaning duties somewhere else in the vast mansion. He saw that it was midnight. He sighed, sat in the rickety old wooden chair, but soon heard the front doorbell ding again. Oh, God! He expected to hear the little monster girl crying, but this time it was just a real person walking to the counter. He sighed and relaxed. A tall, thin woman in a black dress, a bit too formal for the occasion, and a veil, so old-fashioned, approached him and spoke with a silken voice. "Hello, dear. Do you have a vacant room for a traveling lady? It feels chilly tonight and, well..." Yes, ma'am, of course. We're pretty empty tonight. Did you want a single or a double?" She lifted her veil, looked him in the eyes, and said, "Double, please. I never sleep alone." Her face was pale, her eyes deep gray. When Cecil stared into them, he felt peaceful, warm, even loving, kind of like he felt after a nice glass or two of good red wine. "Dear, would you be so kind as to help a lady with her bag? Could you follow me up to my room?" She smiled and licked the corner of her lips. The little part of his brain trying to warn him was overwhelmed by the joy he felt looking into her eyes. Yes, of course. Let me just get the key." When he turned to find the key, his eyes happened to pass over the list of rules, and he saw again Rule 1. If a very pale woman wants to check in after midnight, do not say anything to her or look her in the eyes. Simply take her payment and give her the key. This snapped him out of her bewitchment, and she saw him looking at the rules. She hissed and tried to leap across the counter violently, but the counter itself seemed to hold some sort of supernatural barrier that kept evil at bay. "Come, boy, are you afraid of a helpless lady?" It was hard for him to look down and avoid her eyes, knowing that she was still clawing at him, but he said nothing, just slid the key across the counter. Her hiss became a deep rumbling, and he knew that she was not really a lady. He saw her hand on the counter, a spindly, bony thing with 7 fingers and bloody nubs where the nails should have been. But he rang up the room on the register and kept looking down. Very well, very well. This is not my first night here, nor will it be my last. Next time, dear, you will join me in my room, and I'll show you the secrets of life and death." She slid a stack of $100 bills across the counter, turned, and stormed off. When he finally looked up, she was just turning the corner back into the parlor, and from beneath her black dress, a thick, fleshy white tail whipped from side to side. My God. Now he knew the rules were no joke. What would have happened if he had helped her up to her room with her bag? I can make it through the night. Remember, Cecil, $60 an hour. Just obey the rules. While he was reassuring himself, he saw another one of the shadowy forms stalking the corners of the room from the sides of his vision. When he turned to look, nothing was there. But now another one tiptoed across the wall on his other side. He jerked his head around again and saw nothing. But now, in his periphery, one of the shadow figures was crawling on the ceiling towards him like a fast insect skittering along. He screamed and threw his arms up instinctively to protect himself, but nothing happened. He remembered Rule 3. If you see the shadow creepers in your peripheral vision, immediately poke your finger with the supplied scalpel and close your eyes. Oh God. He started opening drawers, searching for the supplied scalpel. Sure enough, there was a surgeon's scalpel vacuum-sealed in a sterile container. Why? Why do I have to do this? He held the blade, and his peripheral vision was filled with a horde of countless shadow creepers crawling along the walls, floor, the ceiling, all rushing towards him. He poked the tip of his index finger. The blade was so sharp he hardly felt it. He held his finger out on the counter and closed his eyes hard. The finger tickled as if someone were lightly licking it, and then he felt the sucking. Faint at first, and then growing louder, a slurping, lapping sound came from all around him. He felt the harsh suction and hot blood oozing down his finger. The shadow creepers kept sucking, drinking, guzzling, and after several minutes he began to feel dizzy, slightly weak from the blood loss. Several minutes more, and he was becoming too weak. He didn't want to die, so he snapped his eyes open. Stop! Nothing was there, but his entire finger and part of his hand were smeared with the thick crimson liquid. Hoping he had allowed them to feed long enough, he found the first aid kit and cleaned out the wound. Katrina popped in again and looked surprised. You're still here? He looked at the clock. It was 4 a.m. Yeah, the pale woman came. I accidentally talked to her and looked her in the eyes, but I snapped out of it and she went away. Then the shadow creepers came, but I poked my finger and let them feed. Oh, God, no. Oh, Cecil, didn't you read the rules? Yes, I followed them. You said to follow them. Oh, Cecil, no. You broke Rule 1 by interacting with the pale woman. You broke Rule 2 by going into the parlor with the little girl. You obeyed Rule 3, sure. But I'm still here. I'm still alive. Isn't that the point? You said the rules are here to protect us. She slowly picked up the ancient rule book and held the list in front of him. Look at Rule 4. He felt dread as he looked down and remembered the last rule. If you break a rule, you have 5 minutes to exit the guest house. Oh, God. The little girl, I broke that rule hours ago. She nodded with a grimace. I'm so sorry. You broke the rules. Wait, what does that mean? The house, Cecil. The house. It needs life to continue to survive. It needs lives and souls. It feeds, just like the shadow creepers and the pale woman and the little girl. I'm getting out of here. He tried to stand up, but he was too weak from the blood loss. I'm so sorry. It's too late. The house won't let you leave. He felt his head spin from weakness, from fear. The room began to fill with the shadow creepers, but this time he could look directly at them and see them plainly. The pale woman and the little girl walked back in, holding hands. The creatures of Bluebird Guesthouse walked in a crowd towards Cecil. Katrina stood up and backed up. I'm so sorry, Cecil. The counter can't protect you anymore. You should have followed the rules.